Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, when asked about the illegal migrant crisis, he says this: "Do you not understand that you have not had a mayor like me? I'm doing all of this with a wife and 3 kids." Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think a lot of Americans have a wife and multiple children, and I don't really think that's an excuse for doing such a bad job at the migrant crisis. Guys, if you go to Chicago right now, this is not like a enormous city. Chicago might have all the skyscrapers, but the population really is only about 2 million. And when Chicago, this little city, takes in about almost 50,000 migrants, of course, there's a massive collapse and crisis in Chicago. One of the biggest gripes that many Chicago locals have is, one, they never asked to take in this many migrants, and two, I think a lot of them would have been pretty cool with taking in migrants if they only taken in less than 3,000 people. But instead of taking in less than 3,000 people, which many analysts are saying that is probably the number that Chicago could handle, they took in 30 to 40,000, heading to 50,000 towards the end of the summer of this year. So yes, Chicago is literally collapsing. They're going broke. They're spending all this money, and many people in less fortunate neighborhoods in the South Side are seeing their whole entire communities being turned into just migrant shelters. So yes, a lot of people are not happy with Brandon Johnson. In fact, 75% of people in Chicago says the mayor is doing a pretty bad job. Now check this, Chicago is in a migrant apocalypse. Every Chicago guy says that they've survived the lockdown, the pandemic, the looting, the violent crime, and now they got a migrant crisis they got to deal with. They don't believe it. They're kind of done with it. And many companies like Boeing, for example, have already moved their headquarters out. That nobody could take this anymore. And if you look into what's going on here, we have a lot of hardcore Democrats in Chicago that are actually going against the Democratic Party. You got whole neighborhoods in Chicago where 97% of the voters are Democratic. Okay, they vote for the Democrat Party. So if you ask me, this is a pretty big change because a lot of these voters, they're pro-Biden, they're pro-Mayor Brandon Johnson. They are very anti-Republican, but now it seems like they're kind of sick of this. They feel like this is getting too much. They're seeing their whole entire communities being turned to just a migrant shelter. You have their parks, recreational centers. There's even a recreational center in Boston. It was a less desirable neighborhood. Just seeing their only thing they have in their community, which is a recreational center, being turned to just a migrant shelter. These guys are not having it. These Chicago citizens are done with all this migrant crap. They want their community back. They want their city back. They don't want their place to turn into a massive migrant shelter. And all of them are asking the same thing. Why is Chicago even doing this? Many of these residents of Chicago are sick of Democrats prioritizing migrants over their own communities. Chicago has a pretty big homeless population. People are starving. There's also neighborhoods that are getting gentrified and locals being moved out. Why not provide a little bit of money for these guys and let them stay in their neighborhoods? Maybe make rent a little bit more expensive, whatever it is. And even Chicago's suburbs some of them are kind of forced to have migrants, and many suburb mayors are pushing back against this, seeking to restrict migrant drop-offs. They don't want this to happen. They're kind of tired of it. Chicago just took in way too many people, and like I said in the beginning of the video, I think a lot of people in Chicago, they don't mind the migrants, right? And I'm sure if Chicago takes in about, let's say, 3,000 migrants, housed them pretty well, and then got them into regular society as working class individuals, everyone will have no complaints. I think people will be the opposite. People will be very happy. But when Chicago takes in almost 50,000 people, whole communities becoming just migrant shelters, and they're spending millions of dollars on this, obviously everyone is not going to be happy. I mean, over $100 million are spent by city officials to care for migrants in 2023, and people are saying that 2024 will be even more expensive. So this is why people are not really that happy with what Chicago is doing, and I'm not even sure what Chicago will be doing the next few years of the whole migrant crisis. So thanks for watching, guys. Comment below, and see you guys later.